Welcome back, TV Historians. Oh my goodness, I am so very happy you're choosing to listen to this episode of Advanced TV Herstory. It's the podcast that has connected the dots between TV and feminism to American politics and culture for 6 years. Whew. Today we're diving into the deep end of Hollywood history courtesy of the dearly departed Carrie Fisher's fantastic imagination and writing talent. Are you ready for obscure? All right, here we go. In the winter of 2001, a made-for-TV movie called These Old Broads aired on ABC. You've likely never heard of it because, well, made-for-TV movies are the TV equivalent of fast fashion, disposable. But rest assured, listeners, you can find These Old Broads on streaming services and also on DVD. I know you're asking, Cynthia, what distinguishes this movie from any other that's landed in the dustbin that you've never heard of? Well, I'll tell you this, 3 things. The cast, the writing team, and, perhaps most importantly, the subject matter. Do you remember seeing On Golden Pond, or should I say the 6-category Oscar-winning On Golden Pond? It was back in the 80s. On Golden Pond was a project led by Jane Fonda, and it was a work that she thought would be perfect to finally appear with her father in. It had previously been on Broadway. And yes, also in addition to appearing with her father, Katharine Hepburn will be the other geriatric lead. In her 2005 memoir, Jane Fonda details the heaven and earth that was moved to get the pieces in place for filming. The race against time had a lot to do with Henry Fonda's heart condition. Lo and behold, he lived long enough to see the Oscar ceremony announcing his only Oscar win, and sadly, not much more. On Golden Pond is a classic. Watch it if it's been too long, because I know you're bound to see it in a whole new light. You are a different person than you were the last time you viewed it. So keep in mind the sense of urgency that Jane had to get On Golden Pond completed. It's a fabulous story that she writes about in her 2005 memoir, My Life So Far. Okay, so the cast of These Old Broads, which is not exactly 2 Fondas and a Hepburn, is, well, I'll say pretty close. Shirley MacLaine, Debbie Reynolds, Joan Collins, and Elizabeth Taylor. In a made-for-TV movie. Get out of here. Shirley MacLaine, who you may know from all sorts of things, bagged her Oscar for her lead in Terms of Endearment in 1983, and she also was in Postcards from the Edge, which was based on a Carrie Fisher book. She was also in The Apartment way back in the 50s and Steel Magnolias in the 80s. Debbie Reynolds was Carrie Fisher's mother and, yes, passed just days after Carrie did in December 2016. Debbie's Oscar is for humanitarian work, namely buying up Hollywood costumes, props, and artifacts through the years, preserving them, and doing the archiving that Hollywood just didn't have the organization to do. There was too much of a competitive nature, and too many people were just buying up a few things, and Debbie recognized the value in all of it. Over the years, many of her items were sold off at auctions so that Debbie could pay back taxes and other debts that were left by her trail of embezzling husbands, but many of these priceless items are now finding a permanent home in the new Academy Museum of Motion Pictures in L.A. You may love Debbie from her 50s film career like Singin' in the Rain or Tammy and the Bachelor. Joan Collins, yes, Joan Collins, Alexis from Dynasty, is part of this golden quartet, and, she earned her place in it. She just came about it in a different way. If you look back at her career, she was a very busy woman in the 50s and 60s. She was an actor who paid her dues in film and TV. She was in episodes of Star Trek, Batman, Policewoman, before landing her iconic role as Alexis Carrington in ABC's Dynasty in 1981. And wow, the 80s were a fantastic decade for Emmys, and Collins did not get the recognition she deserved. I'll just say that. All these women, Shirley MacLaine, Joan Collins, Debbie Reynolds, and yes, Elizabeth Taylor, they were all born within 2 years of each other. And they were ready to film a TV movie that required them to sing and dance and perform a parody of Hollywood. I'll say that Collins, Reynolds, and Shirley MacLaine were, Elizabeth Taylor wasn't. Rounding out the quartet is, in fact, Elizabeth Taylor, who neither sings nor dances in the film. In fact, she mostly sits in a bed as a parody of herself. Her role as an iconic Hollywood agent who still has a few clients is both modeled after a real woman, but is also a visual tip of the hat to her legend. Oh, and if you're keeping score, Taylor's leading actress Oscars came for her work in Butterfield 8 and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. She, too, earned the Academy's humanitarian recognition for her leadership in raising awareness and funding for HIV/AIDS. These Old Broads was written by Carrie Fisher and Elaine Pope. Fisher, in addition to acting, yes, Princess Leia, was a prolific author and script doctor. Pope wrote for TV, including Seinfeld and Not Necessarily the News, and the film Elfie. Now, news coverage in February 2001, when this made-for-TV movie was about to air, reported that Fisher had been working on the concept of These Old Broads before and after being hospitalized for her mental illness, bipolar disorder. And the script is literally right out of Hollywood history. It's billed as such. A 40-year-old movie's re-release is a hit, and there's focus on the three main actresses. The adopted son of one has to make these old broads perform in a show together. One problem, they hate each other. I'll tell you a little bit more. This movie re-release is called Boy Crazy, and it's the name of the big movie that was being celebrated for its golden Hollywood sugary look at young love, cars, and 50s music. And it would have featured a young Shirley MacLaine, Debbie Reynolds, and Joan Collins. But as older women now, they've all moved on in life, and they are invited to do a TV salute to that classic hit Boy Crazy as mature performers. Along the way, viewers are treated to tangled backstories, grudges, bad blood, and scandal that Fisher tightly weaves into about a 90-minute straight run because, of course, we don't have commercials from 2001.
Hi. Get out.
It's so good to see you too, Mother.
Stop it. Since you have not spoken to me in I don't know how long, give me one good reason why I should speak with you.
Well, I believe it is you who have not spoken to me.
Well, we're speaking now.
I have a job for you.
I know about this job. But you did not have a job for me when you were making that Mary Todd Lincoln show. And you know I wanted to play Mary Todd Lincoln. I see spirits, too. And I can be dignified.
Mother, I was making a documentary on Mrs. Lincoln. We used old photos and drawings. There were no actors. You need this job desperately. Your last two business managers cleaned you out. You're in debt up to your...
I would rather get a barium enema on live TV than work with that tramp again.
What tramp?
The one you went to before you came to me. I wasn't born yesterday.
Yeah, I'll say. I'm offering you the chance to make a comeback, to make some serious money. Forgive me, I'm a horrible excuse for a son.
Well, why can't I star in this TV show all by myself, huh? I am the only one that's still legitimately working, you know that. Addie's a gangster's mall, and Piper has some saloon so she can sing in it.
Mother?
No! Oh, my inner child is having such a tantrum. Oh, it's criminal what you do to my third chakra.
Embedded in the wacky plot are real-life analogies of events from Fisher's life and her love of Hollywood. The most prominent one is Elizabeth Taylor's stealing, and I say that in air quotes, stealing of Eddie Fisher from Debbie Reynolds following the accidental death of Taylor's husband, Mike Todd. This was worldwide headline fodder. The four had been good friends and even were part of each other's wedding parties. The world was rocked when headlines reported of Eddie Fisher's abrupt departure from the home he shared with Debbie Reynolds and toddler Carrie Fisher and baby Todd Fisher to join Taylor, who was near hysteria with grief following Mike Todd's airplane crash. Fisher's place in Hollywood royal family trees is a hefty portion of her book and stage performance that was so huge back when she was still alive. It was called Wishful Drinking. And in it, she connects herself by marriage, in a very delightful presentation, by marriage and divorce, to scores of prominent people. And in the LA Times in February 2001, just as These Old Broads was going to air on ABC, the LA Times reported that Reynolds believes the project brought Taylor closure. Quote, Elizabeth has tried very hard in her life to make amends, and she certainly has succeeded in doing that, says Reynolds. And doing this brought us much closer together. Elizabeth did this for very little money. She wanted to do it for Carrie, and she wanted to do it for me. Quote, it was like my mother and Elizabeth found each other again, says Fisher, of their time together on the film. There was a certain point when Elizabeth said to my mother, if there's anything I ever did, and then my mother started crying. It was so sweet, says Fisher. Now there's another subplot which is one fit for a Hollywood expert. It's a reference to Loretta Young, who was a classic Hollywood staple of the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And years after it happened, the world discovered that Young was pregnant by Clark Gable. She went abroad to deliver her baby and returned with it to the United States as an adopted daughter. While certainly there's evidence that major stars had abortions, Fisher chose to incorporate this heartfelt scheme into the plot of These Old Broads.
Stop it! That's it. That's it. Nothing is worth this. I'm pulling the plug on this sucker. You're all officially out of a job, especially you. Tom, put on a rerun of the Susan Lucci movie and release a statement to the press saying that whatever talent these ladies had, they've lost, along with their minds and their looks and my interest.
Oh, no.
Thanks.
No.
You know, the three of you are so bitter about crap that happened so long ago. You don't even realize what was supposed to happen here. You're the stars of a movie that the whole country has fallen in love with again, and you don't even care. Boy Crazy was a movie about the joy and the love that three friends could have for each other, and the three of you are just the worst ambassador of that message that the world will ever know.
Wesley, dear heart, love apple.
God, I think she's having a heart attack.
She's crying, I think. Don't be silly, I've never seen her cry. Neither. But I remember hearing that she tried that once in the Gregory Peck movie, and she had to slice an onion to stick it in her eye.
Oh, please. I told Wesley that he was my real son in the most horrible and bizarre way. Oh. And now we've lost our jobs, and he's lost his job, and God, he'll never speak to me again.
And lastly, I believe I've discovered another Easter egg that Carrie Fisher hid in this film. I've never read of this anywhere, but rather it came to me after too many viewings of These Old Broads and reading books written by Carrie Fisher, Debbie Reynolds, Elizabeth Taylor, and a whole host of classic Hollywood women. There's a protective and nearly silent code of honor around Judy Garland, who also attended the studio school at MGM and was a few years older than Debbie, Elizabeth, and all the others, and yet still they all traveled in a very small community there in Hollywood. In her 2013 memoir, Unsinkable, Debbie Reynolds has this to say about her connection to Judy Garland. She was detailing the auction that was being held of some of her Hollywood memorabilia, at which a Wizard of Oz dress and ruby slippers were on the block. Here's what Reynolds wrote. Quote, she was talking about legendary designer Adrian's original costumes for Judy Garland, before Victor Fleming decided he wanted something more contemporary looking. That would be contemporary for 1939. The ruby slippers that I sold were closer in design to the description of Dorothy's shoes in the book. Judy wore these in the wardrobe tests for the film. They were her favorite. The reserve for the blue cotton dress was $60,000. I felt a pang as this treasure appeared on the screen. Judy had been my dear friend. I loved every role she played. How could I let this dress go? But I had no choice, wrote Reynolds. Now, do you want to know how much Judy's dress, not even the one that appeared in the film, sold for? When Debbie Reynolds needed to liquidate? $910,000. Reynolds and so many others share very little about their special connections to Judy. Many of them, however, have gone on to have special relationships with Liza Minnelli, Garland's higher-profile daughter, and Lorna Luft and Joey Luft are not nearly factored into any remembrances. You don't see pictures of them at Studio 54 in the 70s with all of these other glamorous stars. So I'm particularly intrigued when, watching These Old Broads, toward the end, there's this shift in the plot, and in a bid to buy Shirley MacLaine's character time for a heart-to-heart with her son at a gay bar, Reynolds and Collins provide this major distraction. Like what, you ask? Well, these women are in great condition for being in their late 60s. Playing the roles of iconic singing and dancing actors, Reynolds and Collins hop up on the bar and belt Get Happy, the song. As in, come on along, get happy, put on a happy face. They're having a ball doing it. It just looks like a total blast, especially when they are joined by adoring gay men in the audience who assist with their dance moves. A gay bar, Get Happy, the fact that they all had a connection to Judy Garland. Carrie rounded out her salute to These Old Broads by calling upon the best from her mother's generation, 4 of them in person, and one who never lived to be an old broad. So maybe you're still thinking, hey, wait a second, how does this equate to the urgency that Jane Fonda felt with On Golden Pond? In the early 2000s, Taylor was diagnosed with congestive heart failure, on top of a host of other maladies she had nursed throughout her years. In her final decade, she was mostly photographed in a wheelchair or standing for only brief moments. In the late 1990s, she told Barbara Walters in a TV interview that her medical issues made it difficult for productions to purchase insurance to guarantee her ability to fulfill a role in a cast. So maybe Carrie watched that interview and knew that there was a story to tell, one that required her and Elizabeth Taylor to be a part of. I recommend These Old Broads highly for viewers of all ages. Because yes, there are some saucy moments, but really, would we expect anything less from Carrie Fisher? Catch it on streaming or find it on DVD. It's out there. Go to our website, tvherstory.com, for all the scoop on past episodes, including one on Elizabeth Taylor's perfume marketing tie-in to an all-star CBS women's sitcom lineup. The marketing tie-in and the episode are both called Taylor Made Monday. Also at our website, find out how to follow this podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and sign up for our newsletter. Rest assured, your email is safe with me. Remember, tvherstory.com. I am grateful to Catherine Yang for her genius work in making this episode sound wonderful in your ears. Find our episodes on most places you find podcasts, including Spotify, Pandora, and YouTube. Intro music you've heard is Take Me Higher by Jazzer and is found at freemusicarchive.org. Folks, every so often, TV herstory collides with regular old Hollywood herstory and stories of forgiveness and loyalty. This is why I podcast. I'm your host, Cynthia Bemis Abrams.